So I got baptized. I'm here. I'm feeling good. I was like, I can't sing that anymore. I can't sing bodies hitting the floor. I can't see that. But
I
at the
know,
same
right?
time, I'm seeing everybody who also was Christian saying, "Whoa, let the bodies hit the floor. Let the body." I'm like, no, 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 I can't do it.
Hello and welcome, world, to the Call by God podcast. I'm your host, Brother Nick, and I'm not here with my dear co-host, Sister Adney, but we are joined here today with a special guest, Brother Stephen Holder. Man, how you doing on this blessed
I'm doing
day,
pretty
brother?
well. How about yourself, man?
Oh man, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. So we're recording on a Sunday. So before we get into your episode, you
Mm.
know, please, how was worship today?
What, you want me to sing something? I'm not a singer, bro. What you want me to do?
Nah. How was where we come together, we congregate, we worship, we
Mhm.
fellowship, and how was worship with the
Worship
saints
with the
today?
Saints was very good. We had a member who was preaching. Our minister is out of town. He's actually in Greece, doing like a nice trip.
Oh, okay.
He's doing a whole bunch of stuff over there. I saw some of his photos, but worship was good today. I think definitely touched some people. Everybody needs to hear something at some point. I caught some glimpses of it as I was kind of working in tech, but it was good though. It was good. So
Amen. Amen. Well, I know I just kind of
that's
caught you off
okay.
guard with that question, but for the sake of our listeners and our viewers, before we get into your initial question, just tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit
Oh,
about
sure, no
yourself.
problem. So, my name is Stephen D. Holder. I use the D because that's very important to me. D, um, not D, but Stephen D. Holder is me. Stephen Holder is an actor on Netflix, and Stephen Holder is a correspondent on ESPN. Stephen D. Holder is your boy. Okay, so I like to put that out there. I like using my middle initial. It kind of gives me some that distinguishes me. But man, I mean, I guess I never really talked about myself, so I'm gonna just give this a shot. But I mean, I'm from Buffalo, New York. I did all my schooling in Buffalo under elementary, high school, and college grad. Once I finished with that, moved to Ohio with my uncle for a little bit. He got me a job. Started to be in IT. Right. I went to school for a teacher, but teaching wasn't working out. So got in IT, stayed in IT, and just kind of made my own path from there. And from Ohio to Cleveland, Ohio, DC, Detroit, and finally moved to Raleigh, North Carolina in 2015. So this is where I call home right now.
It's exciting to me just to hear a little bit about the guests before they said yes to the gospel. So my question to you, brother Stephen D. Holder. I like how you put the D in there. Now I got to put emphasis on that, Stephen, brother Stephen D. Holder. Give our listeners and our viewers a glimpse into your upbringing and background before you said yes and obeyed the gospel.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I'm going to start this answer off of a little strange way. I don't want to go
Sure.
left field, but we'll see how it goes. So, the first memory that I can ever remember in my life was I was small and I was by a tree with a bunch of leaves. Okay. Now, I'm saying that for a reason. Hopefully, I can get to it. But fast forwarding to when I was getting older, single mom, not necessarily in the hood, but not the best area in Buffalo. She did
Yeah.
what she could, and love her. She's still here, so we're doing all right. And I went to a public school. I love public school, but I was a little rough in the beginning of public school. I was a little rough, and I don't really like conflict and stuff like that. And one day I was just getting, kids were bothering me, whatever. And my mom's like, "Listen, you got to do something with this. You can't keep doing it." So I said, "Oh, okay." But it went a little too far, and some other things happened. Nothing like awful, but um, that was an experience. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to say stereotypical kid in the hood with a single mom, but that's what I'm going with
Yeah.
for right now.
And that's normal. That's normal between especially our culture.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was definitely family around to help, right? The whole village thing, but people moved in different places, and you had to get dropped off here. Somebody had to drop you off there, and I don't fault them at all. They did what they could, what they had, right? But in terms of his living, you know, was living with, at least in my early years, right? I was with her.
So, what was your mother? Was she like a church going woman,
So
or
yeah,
she had any spiritual
yeah,
background?
she definitely has spiritual background. Her sister, and their brother, they all have spiritual background. But you know, I guess when she had me and she was working, not that she never disbelieved, but I mean, it just wasn't not like a regular occurrence of going on Sunday, if that makes some sense.
Right.
And I think this will kind of unveil as we kind of go through the questions and kind of dig a little deeper and how I got to
Yeah,
where I'm
yeah, yeah. The
at.
the reason why I asked that because when I was a kid, same thing. I grew up a single. My mother was a single mother. Praise be to God. God gave her the strength to raise 7 children. She had a total of 8 children, but God gave her the strength to raise up 7. And the only memory that I have of her in terms of the spiritual component was she used to like force us to go to church. We were like little kids, and she was like, "Yeah, you're gonna go to church. You're not staying here on Sunday." And there are times that she would go to church, but there are times that she would stay home, and then she would just send us to somebody church. So we went to like different churches when we were young. And then that's what I appreciate about my mom was that piece that she tried her best, because there was no man in the house, because there was no father figure, she didn't have a husband. She made sure that her children learn about the master, Jesus Christ. So, and that's going to a nice little segue to the next question. So, my question to you is like, who taught you the gospel, and how long after the teaching did it take you to obey the gospel?
Yeah, so to answer that, I think I turned 8 years old, and I was playing over at my grandmother's house, and she just out of the blue said, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 8," and she said, "It's time for you to start going to church." To which I said, "Church? What's that?" Right? So that's kind of how I kind of got into it, and I'm sure my mom said things about God or Jesus when I was younger. Maybe I just wasn't receiving what she was saying at that time, but my grandmother actually stopped me, like, "How old are you? Okay, it's time for you to start going to church." So that's kind of what got me back into it. And I mean, it got my mom kind of going back into it too, right? Stephen's this old now. He needs to start knowing about God and Jesus and going to church. I go to the church right here. You all welcome to come. And that's kind of how I got into church, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
I think I was going because I was kind of told to go. Um, I don't necessarily think I fought it really. I know you hear stories about people I fought it, like I was forced to go, this and that and the other thing. My mom wasn't really a forceful person in terms of that. Um, but she was like, "Yeah, no, it's a good idea. It's probably good that you go." So started going, and I was right at that age where everybody was always too old or too young. So I was like 10,
mhm,
and like the closest friend I had at the time was like the minister. But in terms of like my age range, if I'm 10, the closest person is maybe like 22. Okay,
oh,
and then
wow,
like the youngest person is like 6, like 5 and 6, and then they have siblings. So I would never really have like that. I won't say youth connection, but I never had people like around my age. Like I talked with everybody, everyone was very friendly, but I was just at that age where I felt it was a little difficult. But I started going to church and started slowly realizing, what's kind of going on. But the thing that really set me on with the gospel was once I started going to church. Um, my grandfather, who I call dad, he was like, "Hey, you need to go to a Christian camp. It's called Camp Hunt, it's Hubbardsville, New York." And again, I'm like, "Camp? What's that?" Aside from just what you see on television, right? You think of
yeah,
Nickelodeon shows or whatever, like, "Oh, okay." So I was like, "All right, let's go to camp." So I went to camp and I absolutely loved it. It was like, this is amazing. The activities, the praising, the worshiping, singing. I'm not a singer by any means, but just seeing other people sing and how different people can come together from different spots around the state. I'm from New York originally, right? So different people from New York would come to this camp, and it was, it was good for me, right? It was good for me because I didn't really have that. So one year at the camp, there's a guy named Will Spina. I still know him. He's a preacher, minister in Arizona right now at a Church of Christ. And he's like, "Hey, young man, let me talk to you right quick." I'm like, "What you want to talk to me about, man? What you doing?" And we started sitting down, opening up the book, and going to it. Now, by this time, I'm around 15 or 16, but I knew that something had to be done. He was talking with me, sitting down, going through things, and showing me scriptures and giving me real world scenarios of things that kind of connected with me. I think, and the question came, well, you think you're ready? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Well, you don't know, but you just answered all these questions. Yeah, but I don't know. All right, well, the water's not going anywhere. We have a pool right here. You can go. So, I mean, I was back and forth a little bit with it, but ultimately I did commit. I did say Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior and the Son of God, and went down into that water. Came up saying, "Taking care of business," I think is what I said. It's something like that. I don't. I was happy. I was happy. I do want to add on one thing to this because I do think it's important to note. Um, I don't want to say I didn't want to say I felt pressured, or I want to say it was coaxing me or pushing me. I do not want to say that because that wasn't the case. But in myself, I wasn't sure if I was ready. But then, especially getting older, and looking back and stuff. But you're never going to be ready. That's kind of what like faith is, right? I'm believing in you. I'm putting my trust in you. So whether you think you're ready or not, if you're answering these questions and you're studying with this gentleman who's taking time out to really study with you, you're ready. Yeah, we're ready. I'll stop it there.
I like that you said that because when I was young, and how old were you when you got saved?
I
Gave
want
your
to
life
say
to the Lord?
15, 16. It was July 15th, 1998.
Yeah, that's a good age too. Because when I was around that age, somewhere around middle school, high schoolish, people used to talk to me about Jesus. Because as I mentioned, my mom forced us to go to church, so I knew a little something about Jesus. And then, but people over time used to come to me here and there. Like we had this young kid, in middle school. He used to walk up to us with the Bible. And the crazy thing about it, he's the Church of Christ. So it was like a little kid in middle school. He's like, "Hey man, do you know about Jesus?" And he would do this faithfully. So he wasn't like no cold Christian. He was like a Christian that was on fire for the Lord at that age. So if I'm 15, he must have been like 13 years old with the Bible preaching the gospel. And I would never forget, like he would like walk up to different individuals, but I knew a little thing or two about Jesus. But in my mind, I would say that I'm not ready. And then so I used to try to play with God, um, because I don't know if people do this, but I'm saying this is what I did. I said, let me get all the sin out the way, because you think about the do's and don'ts. I don't care what nobody say. You're gonna think about the do's and don'ts, like, man, if I obey the gospel, man, I can't do this, I can't do this. Especially when you're young. You're like, I can't do this, I can't do it. So I just like say to God internally, uh, I'm gonna give my life to you when I'm like 30 years old. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Let me get the sin. So did you think about that? I'm just saying that. Like, did you think about that, or it's something that you're like,
Absolutely,
I'm ready?
absolutely. I absolutely. I talked to Will about this too. I was like, well, if I'm not ready now, well, what about later? He's like, well, yeah, you can do it later, but is that guaranteed? And at the age of 16, I wasn't thinking about, oh, I didn't think about that. And you don't want to get dark and gloomy, like, get hit by a bus type thing. But I mean,
Yeah,
things happen. And it's like, well, what happens if I'm
yeah,
not, what happens if I'm not seeing the sun happen? He looks at me and is like, well, what's the book say? Now, there's more to it. Like, I'm not glossing over it, but these were the
right,
questions.
right.
This was studying. This is called studying, right?
Studying,
And
yeah.
we just kept going through that. But yeah, I absolutely did. And I mean, I don't know if you remember. So when this is '98, and after I got baptized, we went to a campfire. It was the camp thing. We did all this stuff, and the song, The song by Drowning Pool called Bodies was out, and it was just people getting hyped up saying, "Let the bodies hit the floor," over and over and over again. But it was like a thing where
Oh wow.
everybody
Right.
it was soccer was huge at this camp. Everybody loved soccer, and like teams, oh, well, let the bodies hit the floor. So I got baptized. I'm here. I'm feeling good. It's like, oh, I can't sing that anymore. I can't sing bodies hitting the floor. I can't see that. But at
I
the
know,
same
right?
time, I'm seeing everybody who also was Christian saying, "Whoa, let the bodies hit the floor. Let the body." I'm like, no, 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 I can't do this. But ultimately, I joined in. And for me, that was like my first sin after baptism, which this was Wednesday. This was probably like Thursday. All right, so like a day after.
Yeah.
It was so
Yeah.
quick, and I'm like, oh, I failed him. I failed him. And you know, I think I don't know if I told Will or I told somebody, and they're just like, all right, well, I mean, it's a song, you'll be okay. Kind of brushing it off, but like I'm like new, and you're brushing it off, and I'm like, I messed up already. It hasn't even been 24 hours. Already I messed up. Singing, let the bodies hit the floor when it's not what I think maybe humans would consider sin, right? Because spiritual sin and what the flesh thinks are sin. Sin is sin. But, in the human world, oh, okay, you take that penny, it's okay. No, it's sin. Is that yours? No, you take it. It's called stealing. So, so yeah, I mean, so that was my point right there, right away. Like for me, partaking in that song with everybody else, even outside of a Christian camp, even though these are Christians, me coming out of the water to that was trying to fight it. It's like, oh, and then it's like the itch, like it's gonna be okay. It's not gonna be so bad. It's like ah. So
Right, right.
that's a long-winded way of answering your question, but yeah.
Nah, you good. You good. We could chop it up because I like how you clarified that nobody forced you into giving your life to the Lord. I think most people they think they're gonna live for a long time. Even kids, young kids, middle school, high school. You talk about the gospel. They sometimes think that they have tomorrow. We know the Bible clearly says that we don't have tomorrow. Tomorrow is a gift. So even if we make it tomorrow, that's a gift. That's a blessing. So I like the fact that you brought that up because if somebody is talking to you about the gospel today, like you should obey the gospel today. That very same day, we talk about Philip and the eunuch. Like he didn't waste any time, right? He didn't waste any
Know anything
time.
about that?
So being baptized so young, a young Christian, convicted of the worldly song that you was listening to, and then
Yep.
knowing that, and you watching, looking around, other Christians singing the same thing, but you had a conviction in your heart. So, were there any times in your life throughout the journey in your early Christian walk, or even later, where you found yourself in the wilderness, where God had to try you in your faith, and where you had to grow from faith to faith? Could you share a story?
Yeah, sure. So, this is still in Buffalo. I'm just gonna kind of get right to it. The church I was attending was going through a split. Okay. And the church happens all the time, unfortunately, but this one was pretty bad and really divided the people that were at this building. And there was, side A and side B. And I stayed with side A, which was staying at the building. And side B went off and eventually formed their own congregation. Now, I stayed because I was friends with the minister and my friends were there. I knew it was familiar to me. But come to find out later, and by later, I don't mean too much later because my grandmother, my dad, they kind of got with me and said, hey, listen, according to the scriptures, this is wrong. And I know you like going there, but this isn't right because my grandmother left. She's like, yeah, I understand. And then I started kind of getting like not in a whirlwind, but just kind of like the ground shifting beneath me, right? Like, oh, I'm going to church, I'm doing all this stuff. I was just baptized. Like, how is this happening? How is this happening? And I'm still young. Right? I'm only 16 or 17 now at this point, but it still happened. And yeah, it did. So I did a little studying with my dad, a little bit, and I tried to ask the minister at the time questions, but I just wasn't honestly, I just wasn't strong enough to ask the right questions and why they chose what they chose. So ultimately, I left, right? But I left because of what I got at home and saying, hey, this is what they're saying, and this is what the word says, this is what the book says. but this is what they said. And if you don't believe me, because back then they still sent out letters to churches. I'm they still do that now. It's probably emails, but they sent out letters to other churches, these churches of Christ, about what's going down, so you know what it is. And that's I'm not hiding that. That's what people did. More than if you went from one congregation to another, you got to get a letter of not reference, but like a letter of something to say, hey, this person's coming from my congregation. This is what they've done, so they can come to your congregation. There's a word for it. I'll follow up with you on that. But yeah, I mean, this is what he said in the letter, right? I was like, wow, okay. So I wound up leaving. And, I got a letter from this church saying, oh man, yeah, we'd love to have you back and this and that, but if it's not the book, it's not the book. So I didn't go, and that kind of messed up my church regularly going routine, I guess, if you want to call it that, where I wasn't really going to any church. And at that point, all I had was that Christian camp. So I would look forward to the Christian camp. And that kept going on for a while. And then I'll just fast forward to maybe ending high school, college. I just prodigal sunned it without the money. Without the money, because he had money. I didn't have the money. I just prodigal sunned it. And when I say prodigal sunned it, I don't mean like out on the streets. I just mean like I just stopped going entirely. I just stopped going entirely. I was in college, freshman, sophomore, whatever, and it just
So
wasn't. Yeah.
Brother Stephen, so for the unchurched people, what is a prodigal son?
Right.
When you say prodigal son, what do you mean? Could you explain
So
that for
prodigal
the
son is
unchurched?
This is how I'm taking it now. You guys some Bible for me, but prodigal son is somebody who what's right, you know what you need to do. Everything is structured right here, but you still make a conscious decision to just leave it all behind and do it on your own, or figure it out on your own, type of thing. And that's kind of the attitude I took a little bit with church. Is going to be okay. I can pray and I'll be forgiven. I'll just kind of move on out there. So that's what I was operating under. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was operating under.
So
Yeah,
college, then you went off to college,
yeah.
right?
This is all in Buffalo, really. And I gotta also,
Okay.
I gotta take some accountability here. By this time, I'm driving. It was very easy to find another Church of Christ, which I ultimately did do. But in the meantime, I did not. And what reintroduced me back into church was the same person who asked me, "How old are you?" My grandmother. But it was a little indirect. She got extremely sick, and there are a lot of health conditions, a lot of health this and that. But she always went to church, and by this time she was with Group B from that original split that went and formed her own congregation. So when she got really sick, I was like, all right, well, I want to go. I'm gonna go and support her and stuff. So I went back to the church, and a lot smaller, different building, but still kind of the same. I won't say format, but still kind of what I was used to from being familiar from before. And I think that was like, wow, okay. Not only am I supporting her, but I'm also like, I need some of this because I'm a little older. I understand a little bit more. And yeah, that got me back. That got me back into it in Buffalo.
We need more grandmothers like that, because and thank God that nothing really crazy happened to you, like when you had your prodigal son moment. Because sometimes people don't make it back to the church, or sometimes people have like crazy stories. They got internal illness. God had to beat me up, you know what I mean, in order me to get back in fellowship. Obviously, your grandmother wasn't well, but through that circumstance, it got you back in alignment and even back in fellowship with the
And when
saints.
I say it indirectly, because I knew she was getting ill when it was kind of starting, but the thing that really got me, and this kind of really, I think, pricked my heart, was through all her ailments, everything she was going through, she still found a way to make it to that building. It wasn't even like, hey, Stephen, you should come to church. I mean, she probably said some stuff in passing, but what got me was like, how is she still going to church when all this stuff is happening to her and she's still making it, right? And it was kind of rough. This new building was rough conditions. It was in the neighborhood. There was no parking, one-way streets. Almost everything that was putting up all these barriers to block you coming to the building. And she still made it. So I was like, yeah, I need to get to kind of get back in, back into this. So that's, I think, kind of, yeah.
Wow. No, that's amazing because that's a testament of her faith. Because that tells me that you've seen her faith, and that's ultimately led you back into fellowship. Because I was going to ask you this question. I was going to ask you if there's any biblical figures or Bible verses or Christian figures that have played a crucial role in shaping your belief. But man, if I can, I think I can answer that for you. We're gonna give a shout out to grandma.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna ask
Yeah.
you that
Yeah.
question because you brought up grandma
Yeah. Yeah.
twice. So I'm gonna there I don't think there's anybody else that's gonna highlight your grandma after what you
Yeah, no,
just
is
said.
that so? We called her Bunner. Grandma's fine, but like we called her, like all the her grandchildren called her Bunner. But yeah, no, she definitely did, and it was always something that, like, it was just something about her, because like even like we'd be over her house, and she was that old, she's from Louisiana, right? And so
Hmm.
just like you see in the movies where things are just going awful, just awful, 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 and you just see a woman sitting down in a chair, just singing that old hymn. I don't know what she's singing, but it's singing something. Mm.
It's singing something, yeah.
And then just kind of, I always stuck with me, and this is like throughout my life, right? And it's like, man, this
Yeah.
is, yeah. Um. So yeah, I mean, for sure, my grandmom is the one who, I got a lot of people I love, and my dad took care of me. He taught me, when it came down to like paper and pencil and or pen and paper, he's like, write this
Yeah.
down. You need to have some, you need to have some knowledge, because even though I got baptized at that age and I moved on, not moved on, but I continue life, if you don't use it,
Yeah.
and I mean use it, I mean like study it, you kind of lose some stuff. And even now today, there's some things that I probably should know that I just kind of don't. And when you get caught on it, it's like, oh, but then you go back and you read it, it's like, oh yeah, I knew that, but you didn't know it then, and
Yeah.
that's okay. That used to get with me. That used to get me a lot. I didn't know something that I should have known, or what people said I should have known. But then one person said to me, well, it is good to know all this stuff, but not everybody is necessarily built to be a preacher or an educator, or you know,
That's
it,
facts.
it just may not be just you doing what you do, and people see your aura, and then you say you're going to church on Sunday. That just might be what you're here for, to get somebody else in, right? You don't have to explain the gospel
Yeah.
well, let's say explain, but you don't have to try and capture everybody.